Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to IndianapolisMotorSpeedway.com. Courtesy of Twitter today, we are doing an Indy Legends question and answer session. If you have any questions you'd like to do this afternoon, you can get those in at Indy Talk there on Twitter. We have some questions ready to go, and we will introduce you to our Indy Legends. I'm your host, Michael Young, on behalf of the entire Holman George family and the staff here at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. We welcome you to this question and answer session. Going to be a lot of fun. We're with four-time Indianapolis 500 champion, Mr. Rick Mears, and three-time Brickyard 400 champion, Jimmy Johnson. Well, I guess the best way to start, first off, you both wore black on the hottest day here in Indianapolis, so it's good to see you're able to handle the heat. Jimmy, you clean up nice after running around in the dirt last night. Congratulations on your victory in the Prelude.
Thank you. What a fun night. To be in a car that I don't have any experience in and on a track I don't know, and to leave there with the trophy was cool. And Tony did the trophy right. It's like a 6-foot tall plastic, you know, one of those not really expensive trophies, but that's the cool trophy, is like the real tall plastic one, and I still have it with me. It's great.
So what did you do after night? Big celebration there in Rossburg, or did you fly back home? Where did you go?
Sorry, there's something big over here making noise.
Yeah.
A little construction. But no, we stayed around in the pits and bench race, man. That's the way to do it. Mike Helton came out from NASCAR, the president of NASCAR, and I encouraged him to work on a format to where we all stick around and have fun and bench race like the old days, growing up short tracks and stuff. And hopefully, you know, we can work that into our program, because last night we stayed there for a long time having fun.
A little bit, and a question here from @Brickyard3 _95. Wonder what that means. Question for you: what did you think of Tony Kanaan? Of course, one of the stars of the Eyes on IndyCar series. Didn't fare so well, but that was his first look ever at dirt. What was your thoughts of TK running last night?
So proud of him to come out and give it a shot. I mean, you talk about taking a guy and putting him in the most extreme situation. He stepped up to the plate, went out there and made his laps and had fun. And I know next year, if he comes back, he'll be an entirely different driver. I mean, those cars are really odd to drive, I'm not going to lie. I have a great amount of dirt experience, and they drive unlike anything I've been in before. So I thought he did a great job, although when I was leading and we had a few restarts for him, I was tired of the restarts and trying to hold off Kyle Busch and those guys. So I'm like, come on, keep it together. But between he and Ricky Carmichael, they kept the flagman busy.
Talk a little bit about you guys coming up, and Rick, we'll go with you on this one. When you guys started, and you guys have an odd path, you know, both from California, both coming from off-road, how in the world do you ever end up in a winged Indy car and a 300 or 3,500 pound stock car? That's an odd transgression into a sport of the natures that both of you took a route into.
Well, you know, looking back at it, you know, the hindsight's always 20/20. You can see kind of how things happen, and basically the racing world is a small world, and everybody's connected in one way or another. And looking back at my path, I jumped around a lot in different things. I didn't stay in one thing only all the time. I could be running for a championship in one type of car, and somebody come by with something else and say, "Hey, what do you think about trying this?" I'd say, "You bet," because I never dreamed of making a living. I wasn't doing it to get somewhere. I was just doing it for fun. So I would skip a race, even leading the championship, to go run something else just to try it, just to have fun. Well, looking back, every time I did that, it got my, you know, the face and name in front of a different group. And usually these were all connected at the top somewhere. Somebody knew somebody. So it kept the name popping up in different areas. But also, I think, you know, the background that we came from, we were talking about this a little bit earlier, the off-road in the desert, it doesn't get the recognition it really deserves, the credit it deserves. It's one of the most demanding forms of racing we've done. And a lot of the things we learned in that off-road really helped us in every other thing we ever got into. So I think all that together was part of it.
If you had to say one thing, if you had to describe one discipline that you learned from off-road racing that you were able to transition in every other form of motorsport that you ran, what discipline would that be?
Concentration, focus. You know, in every sport, you always hear the main thing in any sport going is the focus and concentration. And I think sitting in a desert car for 10, 12, 14 hours without a break, when I got into an Indy car, 4 hours was a piece of cake, you know, as far as keeping that focus. So there's a ton of other things that come into play, but one of the main things I think was the focus.
How about you, Jimmy?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, as we were talking earlier, you've got so many blind corners, and you come around a turn and there's a rock, and you don't know where you're going in the desert. You have to be on your toes at all times, stay focused. I guess the only, not only, but another major thing to add to that would be car control. You're never comfortable on the dirt, and especially in a truck or a buggy in the desert. Not only is it two-dimensional, you have that third dimension of the terrain and the jumps and being airborne, and you just grow comfortable being uncomfortable. And I think that's how you make a good living in racing, is driving a car on the edge, and the dirt racing and off-road racing really helps that.
So you make that transition and you talk about the stock cars that you drive now. When you go off-road racing, you can never really memorize, oh, that rock was there, oh, and you memorize. Where you're doing an oval, after time you go, here's where I need to make corrections, things of that nature, and a car starts to go away, you're able to maybe detect that a little bit earlier.
Yeah, some of the closed course off-road racing, you're making many laps in a race, and there's kind of that flow and memorization of a course. But like the Baja 1000, I believe, every third year runs from the usually Ensenada, Tijuana area all the way down to La Paz. So it's a straight shot of 1,000 miles. You never see the same terrain at all. We were talking about the Mint 400 and some of these other tracks that it's like a 100-mile loop or 400-mile loops. I mean, you can't remember that stuff.
So adapting, learning to adapt and adapt quickly is one of the other big things I think helped me through everything else. Because every time I got into something new, I was able to adapt fairly quick, which is always a good sign to anybody looking on.
Sure.
As far as owners or that kind of thing. If you can adapt quick and pick it up quick and start running pretty decent fairly quick, and that is adapting, and that's one of the main things that we learn in that off-road.